Okay guys, so while the spaghetti squash was cooking, I went ahead and diced up my vegetables for the quiche, and I pre-lined with a pre-made pie crust. I just pre-lined for the dough. So the reason I have my containers out is because I measured. A lot of you ask me, how do you measure your containers when it's all mixed and pre-done? Well guys, I measure it when I make it, okay? So, for example, I use 8 eggs because I'm going to cut this pie crust into fourths, right? So that's easy. If there's 8 eggs, I know that 2 eggs is 1 red. So if I divide that by 4, that is 1 serving of red with the eggs by 4. I hope that makes sense. And then I used 2 reds of the ham, so it would be 1.5 reds per serving. With that, I used 2 green of the peppers and onions. So that should be simple as well. That is 1/2 green per serving. That way when I go to track this and log it in, I already know my serving right as I cut that quiche. So super simple. We're just gonna saute these vegetables a little bit to kind of soften the onions before we bake it. I forked the bottom of the pastry shell. I pour in the eggs. This is super simple. Okay, and then I gotta get a blue container because I am going to take some cheese, if I can open it. And I'm going to do 4 blues, so that would be 1 blue per serving, because there's 4 servings to this quiche. And I just dump it in, spread it out. Like, don't overthink the container thing. So many of you are like, I get so overwhelmed by the containers. But if you work in even numbers, it's not confusing, okay? Now, you can use whatever kind of cheese you like in this. I tend to use like a mozzarella because it's low skim or whatever, like low fat. And then I just spread that out, twirl it around in the eggs, like I'm not even using a fork or nothing. And by that time, this is done. And you heard the oven beep, so I'm just gonna pour this in my pie shell and bake it. 350, honestly, until the eggs look done, because your veggies are pretty much already sauteed. Now, little tip, put a pie shell or like a cookie sheet under this because it'll probably start to boil over. Catch my drift? Okay. Isn't that so pretty? So we'll bake this. I just gotta stir it around so the egg gets through. We'll bake this on up, and there's our quiche. Okay, so next up are the banana apple muffins straight out of the Fix8 recipe book. Fix8 number 1. I love these muffins. They're a great snack and they work out to help me get my purples. For some reason I struggle with my purple container. They're 1 purple, 1 blue, which is super rad because they're so good and it's an easy way to get a fruit out of the way. So while my spaghetti squash was cooking for the last thing, I mashed a banana, I sliced some apples, and so now I'm just going to beat up 2 large eggs. Oh, and I also prepared my muffin tin right back here with the little papers. I also have silicone tins, which are awesome. Okay. But I used paper this time because they were there. But we're gonna combine the eggs and the banana. Eggs, 2 bananas mashed up. And I was softening this butter, so let's see. This is a tablespoon of butter in there. So you're just gonna mix this really well. And then we're gonna kind of set this aside for a hot minute. I actually think the plan was to mix these two together so I had a dry bowl for the drying ingredients, but it's okay. So now we're gonna mix almond flour, which I love that you can get this at Costco now because I use a lot of almond flour. I have a few friends that are gluten-free, so almond flour is the way to go. And we're gonna add 1.5 cups of almond flour. Easy. And baking soda, 3/4 teaspoon. So funny, so I have to do 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And I never bake with salt, so it calls for a dash of salt, but I'm just gonna skip that. Okay, and then you add this flour mixture to the egg mixture. Mix that around. And then only 1/2 cup of these beautiful apples. So I might even be able to make a couple batches because I cut up 4 apples. Which is fine because with my kids, everything goes quick. And that's it. I'm gonna pour it in these tins and bake it. And those are my snack. Super simple, super good, and they take care of a purple. Okay guys, so the next thing I'm gonna share with you is my lunch salads. So I have some onion that I diced up here, but I have this left over because my Quarter Fort pizza calls for onion slices like that. So I tend to chop everything I need for the week, or everything that I know that I'll need for the week. Sometimes I have to do it on the fly ahead of time. So this is what I did while the spaghetti squash was baking that we talked about earlier. You can see my Brussels sprouts here that I'll just chop up a little bit of white onion and I'll pop those in the air fryer. Tonight when I do chicken on the barbecue, I'll pop those in the air fryer, and check out my stories, I'll show you that there. But sometimes for lunch, we overthink it. What to put in it, what do we do, blah, blah, blah. And I'm gonna make it super simple. What I do is I buy these pre-made salad kits, because it takes less time, and that makes, I think, 3 lunches. So boom, have these super little containers. This is tomatoes and onions that I like to put on there. So I just put those there as a little extra vegetable. You can see that's 1 green. Take out this little bag. And these chopped salads are great because you get so much bang for this little green container. So make sure you push it in there as hard as you can. Now the rule is the lid should close. So I'm like, if I kept pushing this, I'm sure I could get the lid to close. That goes in this big side. I have this over here. And you're probably wondering why this yellow container is here, because you guys know that's 2 greens. Well, all these kits come with like croutons or some sort of yellow, and it only works out every single time to half a yellow. So I put that in the other side of this prep container so that they don't get soggy. And my protein is easy. If I cook chicken, like a whole rotisserie chicken, I will use that. But I was traveling yesterday, so I did not have time to cook anything, and I didn't have leftovers from dinner. So I used canned chicken, no problem. I am just going to take a red, which I've done this 1,000 times to know that it's exactly half this container. So 1 can of the large can of chicken makes 2 salads. So there you go. Dressing on the side. I usually use salsa with this type because it's like the salsa ranch. I'll just put salsa on it. I don't even need the ranch. I don't even use the cheese. That's these two things Brad will use on his. And we're all good. If you're in a bind, use the dressing, use the cheese. But you guys saw already that I put cheese in my quiche. So if that was my breakfast day, I don't want to have the cheese on my salad. It's always something I can add later, but this is a staple. I'm gonna go through, use the rest of the bag, make 3 more salads, and I am set for the week. Okay guys, sorry for the weird angle, but I have to be by my mixer for this one, so we're changing it up. These are my famous protein balls. I love using Shakeology in all other ways than shake. And these protein balls have become a staple around our house and everyone that knows me. So I use 2 scoops of chocolate Shakeology. You can use vanilla. I've even done it with strawberries, so don't fret. Whatever you have, use it. And you're gonna want 2 large tablespoons of, this is almond butter, but don't be afraid of peanut butter unless you're like allergic to it, because peanut butter is just as good, tastes like a Reese's Pieces. And you're just gonna throw 2 tablespoons of peanut butter in there. Okay, that was actually the last of that jar. So then I like to add some steel cut oats or oats just to have that extra little power punch. And you know you are a Fixate guru when the yellow container lives in your oats container. So I'm just gonna do 1 yellow of steel cut oats. Now, honey is kind of my ingredient that allows me to make this bind together. So this is 2 tablespoons to start with, as soon as I can get it full, but I don't want chunky in there. And depending on how wet the peanut butter or the almond butter is, you might need to add a little bit more honey. So that's really all that goes into the mixer. It's a pretty simple recipe that turns out absolutely phenomenally good. And mix it. Spin it around until the Shakeology absorbs into a little bit more than a batter. And from there, you just roll it into balls, guys. So see, maybe I'm not being patient enough, or maybe it needs more honey, so I'm just gonna put a little bit more in. I swear it's not all coming out, it's just, you know, honey taking its time. Okay. So, I am gonna let that go, and then we're gonna roll it into balls, and that is another super simple, super fast snack. Okay guys, so like I said, while these halves of spaghetti squash cooked earlier today, I was dicing and chopping and doing all the rest of my prep. So no time is wasted on this, okay? Then while I was doing everything else, putting all the other things together, my quiche was baking. Now that the quiche is done, I'm going to go ahead and prep this, so then whatever night I eat this, I just have to warm it up, and then we're good to go, guys. Like, how cool is that? We're almost done. So what I've got going here is I sprayed this pan. I'm just following the recipe right off the meal plan, okay? I just did other things while it was baking. So next what we're gonna do is, I already did this one just because it's actually kind of fun with spaghetti squash. When you bake it just right, it like just comes out as strings and leaves the shell. It's so cool. Like, how cool is that? I love it. Just the shell's hard, so I wanna make sure I don't get that in there. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is take half of this. So easy enough, there's 2 halves of the spaghetti squash. So 1/2 goes down into this, and it's so crazy because it totally looks like noodles. pasta noodles, and then you just spread it to the bottom of the pan. Now it says a large pan. This is a 9 by 13. Could probably go an 8 by 11 or even the square, depending on how thick you want your layers, right? Okay, so there's that. And then your marinara sauce. So guys, as long as you buy marinara sauce that has sugar is your thing, no added sugars. So the natural sugars in this is only 4 grams, which is actually pretty good. It's for half of a cup, but there's no additional sugar. We have to be careful where sugar's hidden. That's what makes us gain weight, and it's just sugar is bad, right? So we're going to take this and split it, I think. Okay. Half of this sauce, so 2 cups, if you look at how much is on the thing, and you're just gonna make sure, and this is awesome marinara because it still has big old huge tomatoes, like chunks. I love that, I love that. So it's all gonna bake together. So you just drop that down in there. And then a layer of half the ricotta cheese. So it's a 1.5 cups of this, and I always buy the lightest one that I can. I'm gonna use my fork again and just dish it in there, guys. Like, this does not have to be fancy. So 1.5 cups. And then I'm gonna spread that out nice. And we'll repeat it in another layer, but first I'm like, yeah, the square pan would probably have been a little easier. Just thinking of Brad, because he likes super thick yumminess. Okay, and then you repeat. So here we go down, more spaghetti squash. Now, obviously this is vegetarian. You can totally add sausage or hamburger, or whatever you like in your lasagna, right? But this will probably end up being a lot of my lunches this week. Or could be, you know, between Brad and I. But you could always add meat, no problem. Okay. I'm gonna do cheese again. And then marinara, because I like the marinara on top. And we top it. Oh, that's exactly. Yep. So use the whole thing of that. Okay. So essentially, guys, prep's just about done. I'm gonna wash some black beans and stuff. I'll show you the rest of that, but I did all of that in like an hour and a half, and everything's ready except my waffles on waffle day, which is pretty rad. So since this is already baked, you just have to put it in the oven when you're ready to eat it to warm it up. So that's pretty rad, right? So spread this out. And then we just have to top it with Parmesan cheese. Hold, please. Oh no, the tear thing isn't there. There we go. And Parmesan cheese says 1 cup. And this is only a 6-ounce package, so technically, to be on my container counts, I could use this whole thing, but I probably won't. So that's plenty, just to cover the top. fake one ready. How awesome is that? So in an hour and a half, I was able to do 3 breakfasts, 3 plus some lunches, and a dinner. That's amazing. All my other dinners I cook on time, so unless it's like a soccer night, we'll have this. Other than that, my whole week's worth of prep, plus 3 meals a day, plus snacks in an hour and a half. If I can do it, you can do it.